In this one, I'll be talking about the wildfires and the wildfires in Canada and how they relate to the circular economy, as well as talking about the biodigital convergence at the local level in the GTA or Greater Toronto area, and how that relates to different technical committees and what those are, and how local agendas are really international ones. Hence the phrase of the stooges that want this experiment known as the biodigital convergence to carry out. Think globally, act locally. It's their phrase, it's their slogan. So anyway, here starting off talking about Francois Collier, who's the head of the the Standardization Council of Canada. So every country have their own standardization organizations that work to create the technology involved in the convergence experiment, as well as regulate the public policy and stuff that surround it. So pretty much the standards organizations consist of engineers, scientists, and doctors and things that are pushing for this. And I just want to say too that any engineer is actually involved in this experiment because they have to work directly with these standards organizations to, do their job. So, but I'm just doing my job is not an excuse. So anyway, Francois Collier leads the newly formed IEC and ISO Joint System Committee on Biodigital Convergence. He tells us about the first steps of the Joint System Committee and what challenges lie ahead, notably when it comes to engaging with the bioethics community. So the ISO, the International Organization for Standardization, and the IEC, the International Electrotechnical Commission, are different international standards organizations, and those are what put together the technical committees, which are basically different groups that work with the ISO or IEC or both, and pretty much just work on a different facet of the convergence experiment. And they pretty much are, each of those technical committees are generally ran by different standards organizations from different countries. So in this particular technical committee that uses the term biodigital convergence, pretty much Standardization Council of Canada is in charge of that. So it says it's been a slow start, but establishing governance is key to ensure the effectiveness of the joint system committee. And as of today, all the leadership positions are now filled, and we have started to work in earnest. One of the first steps we took was to agree on the initial deliverables. 9 preliminary work items are currently registered in different areas, including human augmentation. More appropriate term to use is transhumanism, I guess, or whatever, just because they're writing the terminology and stuff here, like it's saying on the foundational side, they're working on the terminology required for the standards in this field. The initial work in this area is approved. We will start with a draft document that includes already, in addition to the definition of biodigital convergence, 99 selected bioengineering terms and 53 selected IT and engineering supporting definitions. So regardless of the terms and stuff that they use to describe what they're doing, doesn't really matter because different organizations and different people pretty much, like for instance the Jesuits talk about the Christ consciousness or the noosphere, which is pretty much just a synonym for the Internet of Bodies, right? So what I'm saying is some groups and some people use different terms and might even put their own spin on marketing this convergence experiment in their own way, whether it's in the eyes of, mysticism and the occult, or, sciencey technocratic terms, for lack of better words. It doesn't really matter, right? So, but anyway, it says here, since system committee work is based on a cooperative approach to address multidisciplinary standardization challenges, invitations have been sent for registered memberships and liaisons to many IEC and ISO technical committees. As its last virtual plenary, the SYC, sorry, I drew a blank there. The SYC has approved 7 registered members and approved or initiated 27 liaisons with various technical committees and subcommittees. in ISO and the IEC. We already have a wide number of liaisons, notably with the Technical Committee 65, which prepares standards for smart manufacturing, and will notably be looking at biomanufacturing, type of manufacturing that uses biological systems to produce commercially available biomaterials. We have already formed a joint working group with Subcommittee 41, which prepares standards for the Internet of Things and digital twin. The experts there will be looking at a specific aspects of body-centered computing. So this kind of setup is interesting because of the fact that you can look at these technical committees and see documents that they can access from other technical committees and what other technical committees can access their documents. So pretty much you have the fact that this Francois Collier-led technical committee can reference this technical committee 215, which has to do with health informatics. So that's interesting because of the fact that in Canada, you have something called HealthSpark, and in the US, you have, I think it's called Stargate Project, where pretty much, and also I just want to say on a side note before I go further, this Technical Committee 215 is ran by the United States Standards Organization, American National Standards Institute, and then you have this particular committee manager. We'll get another look. We'll get a look in another video because I'm primarily focusing on Canada in this one. But the point that I was pretty well trying to make is that with these technical committees able to access each other's documents and that sort of a thing, it's interesting to see the comparison to the Francois Collier-led technical committee to health informatics, because HealthSpark in Canada and then Stargate Project in the US have to do with the idea of personalized medicine, or another term they use is precision medicine. It's the same thing. And pretty much it's a way of personalizing one's medicine for somebody. So they use one's quantum digital twin to look at, one's health and that sort of a thing to determine what's best for them. And whether you're talking about pharma or naturopathic remedies is really irrelevant at this point, because different kinds of nanomaterials and such are organic and some are synthetic, but it doesn't really matter when it's, when these technologies are being used to merge what is biological with what is digital. So anyway, we'll just take a look here to see some of the, so they can access, the committees can access the so the ones who can access Technical Committee 215, you have the IT thing here, you have artificial intelligence, brain-computer interfaces, Internet of Things and digital twin, dentistry, blockchain, distributed ledger, technologies, etc. So, which I must say the blockchain is actually kind of like the backbone of this, because it's sort of like a ledger system in and of itself. So, anyway, I've spoke about that in various videos, so I'll try to keep this as focused as I can. The next thing I'm going to speak about here is something called the World Council on City Data. I'm just going to take a drink of water. So, World Council on City Data, founded in Canada in 2014, and exists to help cities and communities of all sizes globally embrace ISO standardized, independently verified, and globally comparable city data to make data-driven decisions on management, planning, and investment, monitor progress and results, and overall become more sustainable, safe, and resilient, prosperous, inclusive, and smart. All right. And so goes on to mention that the development and implementation of 3 international standards on city data that have been published by the ISO in Geneva, now globally recognized as the World Council on City Data, ISO 37120 series on city data. The series includes these different regulations that have been created here. You can read them off yourself or pause it if I'm going too fast. but they pretty much have to do with the idea of smart cities, so to speak. So, to talk about the person that runs the World Council for City Data, that is Patricia McCarney, and she's a professor of political science and the director of the Global Cities Institute at University of Toronto in Canada. So we're encountering U of T once again, not just for Health Spark. So, and I've encountered U of T in all kinds of research too, the Reconciliation Through Engineering Initiative and so on and so forth. But universities are also a part of this problem, working on the convergence experiment themselves. So here, yeah, so this particular woman here is the one who runs the World Council on City Data, and she even actually went to MIT where she got her PhD in city planning and international development, and she served as Associate Vice President, International Research and Development at the University of Toronto and a Professor of Political Science. Right. And it's kind of interesting that somebody who's really working on a smart city agenda is also has a background in political science, because part of issuing this agenda forward, I mean, really doesn't matter what political party or political belief somebody has or aligns with, because ultimately they're all involved and work together in such a way to roll out this agenda, such as going to the U.S., for example. In 2020, both the Democrats and Republicans funded the National Nanotechnology Initiative, which is part of the FDA, and they work on putting nanotechnology into food and sorry, I can't say certain words because I leave this video on YouTube. So as well, she's worked with different international agencies like the World Bank in Washington, United Nations Habitat in Nairobi, and the International Development Research Center in Ottawa. And she's currently a member of Technical Committee 268, which is Sustainable Development in Communities, where she is chair of working groups on city indicators. And, they brag about here how she was able to play a large part in developing 37120, that particular standard, which is what the technical committees do, is they develop these standards as well. So, I mean, you can look up those standards themselves on the ISO website, or you can look up the technical committees and get a feel for that yourself. And I mean, speaking of being that she does have a background in politics, it's interesting to note, but the Cybersecurity Technical Committee actually has members Israel, Palestine, Iran, Russia, and Ukraine. So what I'm saying is many of those particular regions, nations, whatever, are apparently having political disputes or military conflicts and that kind of a thing. But really, that's just a smokescreen, because they're all on the same smart city team. So yeah, war is an illusion. But anyway, WCCD has led a team of led the development and implementation of these particular things I already said, and so on and so forth. And it says here that for 37120, they got a platinum level certification for sustainable cities in 2018. So and I want to say in particular, so they awarded the city of Mississauga, which is right beside Toronto, with the International Organization Standardization 37122 Indicators for Smart Cities certification as an early adopter. Mississauga is one of the first cities globally and the only Canadian municipality to achieve this new certification. And and it says the city joins approximately 10 cities from around the world who will achieve early adopter certification in 2021. And so the organizations that provided data as part of this evaluation, they talked about the region appeal, which is Mississauga and Brampton, I think. And it mentions Stats Canada, the Government of Ontario, Trillium Health Partners, and Credit Valley Conservation. So this is Technical Committee 268, which Patricia McCartney is a part of, yet it is ran by France. So, as I said the phrase, think globally, act locally. So, going down to the local agenda with, smart cities, France is the one heading this particular technical committee. So, and then of course with Patricia McCartney, a Canadian woman, I believe, would be involved here too. So, and you can see the places that they can access would include, IT, AI, industrial data, has to do with drinking water, health informatics, just like the Francois Collier-led committee. Circular economy, we're going to look at that technical committee later because that is key to what is going on with those wildfires. And it's noted too, that many people like to use this term 15-minute cities, which is slang as far as I'm concerned. I think it also just induces an element of fear, frankly, because a lot of places already are considered smart cities anyway, or, if you want to use that stupid slang of 15-minute cities, they already are pretty much considered that with everything being close by and things like that. So, smart cities are really only a part of the agenda, but realistically, all different kinds of nanotechnologies and materials and stuff like that to create that sort of infrastructure are used, right? Hence why, I brought up circular economy, because the whole concept of the circular economy is to, reuse the same materials over and over again, which is how, for instance, graphene is created, because, a lot of waste is just superheated and even put into the soil, hence the term biochar, right? Which is basically graphene going in the soil. So, okay. So, I'm going to look at a few pages on this document here that it pretty much has to do with it's a smart city master plan in Mississauga. So it says, and we're only going to read parts of it here, but while the 1960s saw the first use of digital data for use in urban planning in cities like Los Angeles, the term smart city in its current iteration was first coined in the late 90s. As with any growing field of work, there are many definitions, and the one they use is from the British Standards Institute. A smart city is the effective integration of physical, digital, and human systems in the built environment to deliver sustainable, prosperous, and inclusive future for its citizens. And also bear in mind as you read these things too, inclusiveness and these, I guess, buzzwords, for lack of better words, really pretty much mean the exact opposite of what is said. Inclusive means excluding everybody who doesn't follow whatever said narrative, and so on and so forth. So, and also the whole formula is pretty much a problem, reaction, solution, where either a problem persists or is, purely manufactured in and of itself. There is a reaction to it, and then the problem is apparently solved by an artificial solution put in place. So that's sort of the formula in which these people work, I guess. So now I'm going to go to page 35. So Mississauga is already a smart city, yeah. So I'm pretty sure this document is from like between 2017 and 2019. But anyway, it says Mississauga had an opportunity to build technology in our infrastructure systems and processes in tandem with the rise of digital technology in our society. Mississauga is, in many ways, already a smart city. The digital ecosystem ensures that all Mississauga's neighborhoods are supported through digital infrastructure, systems, and processes. This includes a substantial digital foundation that is often unseen, including North America's largest public service network of communications fiber, citywide Wi-Fi, an LED lighting grid, which saves energy, an Internet of Things grid that can help with everything from traffic management to air quality control. Smart City will use technology to help create a city that is ready for the challenges of today and prepared for a city of the future. Whatever. So the whole point of LED lights are the fact that it's controlled to the Internet of Things grid in and of itself. So, I mean, I don't really support the use of LED lights. I mean, that's really only a small part of the convergence experiment in and of itself, but talking about this at a local agenda, right? So, it says here, selection of great ideas, questions, and comments, explores the idea of, privacy and also what they call open data here, and then describing the environment. They talk about, the Internet of Things. It says concerned with waste management, which, I mean, all of it is used to create graphene and probably also C60 and other kinds of nanomaterials, which I'll be going over a little bit in this video, but I've already talked about C60 in the past. And then, different aspects of this infrastructure here, that sort of a thing, while also emphasizing things like multiculturalism and that sort of a thing. But I mean, you gotta be real careful when you read some of this stuff, because ultimately, like, sometimes things sound good at face value, or like somebody gets a grant for something relating to culture or something like that, but the way of culture then being expressed is through some kind of smart technology, right? So ultimately, sometimes when people, get grants for different things, it's sometimes very multifaceted in what is really going on. So, and then we see on page 57, so organizations, institutions, and businesses engaged include UFT, Sheridan College, Region of Peel, BIAs, Mississauga Board of Trade, Mississauga Food Banks, Salvation Army, Human Service Agencies, EcoSource, Peel Environmental Youth Alliance, Mississauga Youth Action Committee, Community Living Mississauga, Mississauga Sports Council, Glen Forest, STEM, Living Arts Center, the Rotary Club, of course, and so on and so forth. What's interesting about the Rotary Club, very much like how they're in a lot of municipalities, just like Masonic lodges or Optimist Club and that sort of a thing. The person who runs Policy Horizons, Crystal Vander Elst, is a member of the Rotary Club, along with Suzanne Brandt, who has worked with Policy Horizons, and people would definitely be familiar with her name if you look up the article Indigenous Perspectives on Biodigital Convergence, where she basically markets preserving the land by 3D bioprinting everything and 3D printing meat. So here you have it. And then we have, I'm going to go now to page 67. Try to get there faster. There we go. Mentions these two particular standards over here, and it says that this one, 37120, was developed in 2014 as the first ISO standard on city indicators, and it outlines smart city indicators across 17 sectors that are organized as high, medium, and low priorities. And TS Technical Standard 37151, developed in 2015, outlines principles and requirements for performance metrics of smart community infrastructures and provides recommendations for assessment methods. And then it talks about Smart London here as well, a little bit. So, like London, Ontario, I mean. And then going down to page 71, it gives a glossary of terms here. So augmented reality, I'm going to look at very briefly. It gives Pokemon Go as an example of that. People are familiar. So augmented reality is basically blending the physical and virtual environments together. And Pokemon Go, for instance, just to explain what it is so that people understand the concept, is trying to, catch Pokemon. You're mapped out on, an actual map through your phone, and people just, blindly stare into the phone and go try catch Pokemon and go on the road or whatever the hell they're doing. So that is blending the elements of the real world while, playing a video game, so to speak, or phone game, whatever the hell. So yeah, basically it combines real and computer-based scenes, images to deliver a unified but enhanced view of the world. So that's where I'm going to talk about something called metamaterials, metamaterials, which basically, in a nutshell, can bend light. And this is how, with these strange electromagnetic, acoustic, or mechanical properties, it presents its application in various things, from actually like stealth technology, probably with the military, and also optics and electronics, of course, as I was getting at. And it says the first physical metamaterial was developed by John Pendry and David R. Smith. It was the first experimentally demonstrated a material with negative refractive index. And the term metamaterial was coined by Walser here, I guess, in 2001. And in the last 2 decades, they've received some unique physical phenomena and functions, such as, electromagnetic cloaks, like I was saying, negative refraction, perfect absorption, as well as negative permeability and negative dielectric constant. And it shows this in figure 1. So 1968, left-handed materials, negative permittivity. I can't really read that. Can't really see it correctly. I apologize. But pretty much, how metamaterials are used, going to 2007, the super lens, whatever. So I guess you have different kinds of optical devices or contact lenses, or, I would actually put this in the same category as, I think it's called meta lens, which I'm not sure if it's called that, but they're basically these like metaverse glasses, pretty much, and they were developed. I can't remember who it was that developed it offhand, but people who know who James Scott is can ask him about that in particular. So anyway, you have, in 2014, a digital meta surface, and going up to 2023 and so on and so forth, intelligent meta surface and 6G communication. So it's pretty much they're working on 6G type of technologies, and metamaterials would go into that scale, right? And they range from the macro to nanoscale, as it said here, and it can be constructed in 2 or 3D repeating structural arrays based on the properties required. And so they also talk about negative thermal conductivity and so on and so forth. And this actually is a very new concept to me, the whole metamaterials thing, and I'm still trying to kind of wrap my mind around it a little bit. So, but I'll be going into that, a little further, and probably in videos in the future. But So digital space is a non-physical realm, so it might come as a surprise when the topic of material science is brought up. The metaverse is virtual and therefore does not consist of physical matter. Physical reality does, but the virtual reality of the metaverse or should be interoperable with the physical reality and is based on data transfer about objects and actions existing in the physical reality. It is based on a systemic link to the realm of matter, and therefore in the metaverse there must be a receptive system operated through an interface that receives information about operations and behavior of the matter. Basically, in a nutshell, they're just trying to blend the virtual and biological, or the virtual and physical together. So, and then is there anything else here worth reading in particular? So, yeah, it says here metamaterials hold the potential to precisely control and navigate the course of light within a material. So they're basically bending light, I guess, and this can be applied in optical systems and reducing their dimensionality to much smaller than the previous ones available. They're used to design unique features for novelty optical hardware or entirely new optical systems. The properties of natural and conventional materials are based on their interaction with electromagnetic radiation, the light and radio waves, etc. So yeah, this is pretty destructive force, actually. Pretty destructive force in terms of getting rid of the physical world and kind of trying to integrate it with the virtual one. And I mean, with due respect, I will say, like, this agenda doesn't just carry on into cities, it's also in the urbanized environment, in the rural environments too, right? So there's really no such thing as off-grid, unfortunately. So just to go over, briefly some of the partners that the World Council for City Data has, of course, the Government of Canada and Government of Ontario, but also in Saudi Arabia, and I'm not sure what country the Executive Council is there. I apologize. And, of course, UFT works with them once again. So, and then this thing here, ICLEI, is interesting, Local Governments for Sustainability. They pretty much deal with the 2030 agenda at the local level. I believe ICLEI is based in Germany, but, ICLEI, of course, has offices and people working for ICLEI all over the world. But the thing is people who are probably familiar with Maggie Braun, and she brings up ICLEI quite a bit. But the thing is, for one thing, she doesn't talk about the World Council on City Data, but regardless, more even importantly, she doesn't even bring up the standards organizations or talk about the Biodigital Convergence. And she also uses Gold Star tokenization on Facebook, which basically is Web3 technology. Like the whole buy me a coffee thing. It's the same idea, giving somebody what appears to be a physical item when it's really not. And it's pretty much just a, like blockchain-esque type of, it's a blockchain application within, in this case, as I'm talking about Gold Stars, within Facebook. And, not that, you already have a digital twin using social media, let alone other manners, which, it is created through, even the phone and that kind of a thing, right? Because telecommunications is very much a part of this agenda. And I will say as well here that apparently with this AI image of Maggie Braun, whether she made it or not, somebody's clearly supporting digital twin right there for sure. So, yeah, people should be asking Maggie Braun about the standards organizations and, as well, telecommunications and different aspects of the convergence experiment, see if she's actually going to address it and speak about it, because as far as I'm concerned, only talking about Agenda 21 or Agenda 2030 over and over again is really just gatekeeping from the actual agenda, which is the biodigital convergence, otherwise known as transhumanism, or really just merging biological life with what's digital, right? Or sometimes what people do is they take one thing or a couple things and, use that as the basis of an agenda, like having to do with DVOC. And when I say DVOC, just flip that word backwards. Of course, I can't say certain things without having this video removed, but that is a product of synthetic biology, meaning it was mass 3D bioprinted, for lack of better words, right? And is really only a small aspect of the whole convergence experiment, whereas, whether someone has taken the or not, we all are exposed to different nanomaterials and even ingest them and stuff like this. So everybody is equally taking part in this agenda, and everybody is ingesting different nanomaterials and stuff like that. So anyway, I made my point. So what I'm getting at here is just the World Council for City Data is kind of like all over the place with being in Vaughan and other cities in Ontario, county of Brant right there, and so on and so forth. Markham, cities that run along the GTA and others. So now to move on to talking about the wildfires a little bit. So this in particular, Nova Scotia Forest Matters, talks about biofuels and the bioeconomy. Bioeconomy is just really a synonym for circular economy, is what it boils down to. And I'm not going to dive into the whole soggy fuel and stuff on here, but the whole point is this article is from 2024, and you're talking about making, it says biofuels. They're really they're just speaking very vaguely, but they're talking about producing different nanomaterials and liquids and stuff like that. And the bioeconomy, like I said, is pretty much the circular economy. And so it mentions an Irish company in particular that is working with rural Nova Scotia, and as well pretty much it goes on to talk about some of these people that are involved in this, and talks about bioplastics and stuff like that too. And I mean, also this would include, carbon 60 or C60, graphene, and it even mentions biochar on here, and so on and so forth. So these people are very much all about kind of quantum computing, superconductors, which are used to make quantum dots and stuff like this. So very much, the idea of what we'll call green projects or their net zero plans and that sort of a thing. All of these kinds of terms are just things that relate to the convergence experiment in and of itself. They just love to confuse you with multiple terms and stuff like that. So looking at Simply Blue Group, which is the Irish company working with Nova Scotia. We have Hugh Kelly here, who is the CEO and co-founder, and goes on to mention here that he's investing in businesses across EU, Asia, Oceania, etc., and talks about project pipeline and other things here. So we have the CEO here, Hugh Kelly, and then the other guy, Sam Roque-Perks. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, nor do I really care, frankly. But anyway, he's a civil engineer, and like I said, all engineers work with standards organizations, so they're all unfortunately involved in this convergence experiment, whether they can wrap their minds around that or not. And And as well, he has influence in the EU, Asia, and stuff like that. And apparently, this Irish pub, and I'm not too familiar with nanotechnology in alcohol. I didn't do any research on that for this particular video, unfortunately, but I'm sure that people will probably find something there. And, tackling the global climate change crisis. Climate change, what's changing is the physical climate to something virtual, or rather blending the two. So climate change really just means biodigital convergence. Once again, more terms to throw at you. And then Sustain Agro, who is also mentioned in that Nova Scotia article. This is the CEO, Mr. O'Brien, Joey O'Brien, provider of environmental consulting and event operations that executes sustainable water, waste, global greenhouse gas, and energy solutions. And talks about his passion in the environment, sustainability. Of course, like I said, use their terms, and they mean the exact opposite of what they're talking about. And apparently the Rotary Club has an international sustainability Rotary action group. Didn't know that. So basically, the Rotary Club is quite directly involved in the Sustainable Development Agenda as well. So I guess, a lot of fraternities and stuff like that as well are involved in this kind of a thing at the ground level too. Not surprising. So I'm going to talk about biomass pyrolysis here. So, because also, rather than talking about, the biofuels and the bioeconomy initiative, they also go on to talk about biomass on here, and biomass is pretty much circular economy means of creating different nanomaterials, and in this case, I'm going to look at graphene. So biomass pyrolysis is a promising route for synthesizing graphene-like carbon structures, potentially offering a cost-effective and renewable alternative to graphene. Okay, so this review paper responds to the call for highlighting the state of the art in graphene-like carbon materials design and synthesis from renewable biomass microwave pyrolysis, whatever. This paper includes an introduction to the microwave pyrolysis technology, information and feedstock variability and selection, discussion on the correlation between microwave pyrolysis, process conditions, and pyrolyzed product characteristics, and more importantly, a section identifying any differences between pyrolyzing feedstock using the microwave pyrolysis method versus conventional method. So there you go, that's what this paper is about, although I won't be going over the whole thing. However, I always leave links in the description, so people can always go over and read things themselves and probably discover things I haven't. So, recent times, there's been a surge of enthusiasm, utilization of renewable energy resources, and the implementation of sustainable production approaches in order to overcome the forthcoming engineer shortage and reach carbon neutrality. You can obviously tell what kind of people are writing this, right? Obviously people that are for this agenda, so bear that in mind as you read this. As humanity's technological advances outpace the availability of resources, research endeavors are shifting toward the development of sustainable technologies that exploit novel materials with enhanced properties. Carbon, one of the most abundant elements on Earth, has the potential to address this challenge. Traditional carbon materials such as diamond, graphite, and carbon fiber have been utilized for decades and have had a major role in economic and social progress. The research in carbonaceous materials has evolved further since the discovery of carbon nanomaterials in the 1990s. So, carbon nanomaterials, we're going in the direction of carbon nanotubes, which is also C60. So it can either be shaped like a tube or like a ball, but it's pretty much at the nanoscale at that point anyway, or microscopic. I'm not sure, but basically carbon nanomaterials sort of act like a power source of sorts. So with the carbon nanotubes, so to speak, sometimes like a different power sources that we put into the tube in and of itself, which powers it. And it's almost kind of scary, really, because the carbon nanomaterials are in anything from pharmaceuticals to beauty products to also the aerospace industry. So yeah, pretty much almost like turning us into batteries. Anyway, the distinctive and adaptable surface of carbon materials, along with their simplicity of production, makes them versatile targets, and they're becoming increasingly important for use in energy, biotechnology, biomedicine, and environmental sectors. Graphene, a single sheet of carbon atoms connected via sp2 hybridization and arranged in a honeycomb lattice, has been widely regarded as one of the most revolutionary substances of the 21st century. Graphene has generated widespread interest in the scientific community since its discovery by Konstantin Novoselav and Andrei Geim in 2004, owing to its unparalleled characteristics. Graphene is the world's two-dimensional atomic crystal and has extraordinary characteristics such as this electron mobility of whatever at room temperature and high thermal conductivity, etc., etc. Like I said, links are in the description so people can read it themselves. The graphene's honeycomb structure is fundamental building block for the formation of carbon allotropes such as graphene oxide, carbon nanotubes, carbon nanodots, carbon nanoparticles, and fullerenes. Fullerenes, C60, and buckyballs are all synonyms of one another, by the way. All the same thing. And then the carbon nanotubes are pretty much the same thing. It's just a tube instead of a ball. That's all. These allotropes differ structurally with stacked honeycomb structures forming graphite and fold or wrapped honeycomb structures, resulting in one-dimensional nanotubes and zero-dimensional fullerenes, respectively. And then, of course, there's a picture that depicts the molecular structure of graphite, graphene, and other things here too. So, let's see here, and then, it talks about various applications involved with graphene, like photonics, composite materials and coating, energy generation, storage, environmental protection, biomedicine, etc. It's used for twinning technology, pretty much. And also, they talk about biosensors, and it works very much like kind of like a battery too. So, its purposes are multifaceted, we'll say. And so it says that graphene has been I just want to say too as well, people can pause these things and just look at some of the places where these materials are actually used. Graphene has been found to be an ideal material to improve the corrosion resistance of self-healing coatings due to its ability to enhance the mechanical properties, physical shielding ability, and energy conversion efficiency of the coatings. For example, incorporating graphene into DA epoxy resin composites has been shown to increase their self-repairing capacity and anti-corrosion performance. Furthermore, graphene can be used to tailor the flammability and flame retardancy of composite materials for safety applications. And this source right here investigated the flame properties of polymer reinforced composites with fillers consisting of nano aluminum oxide and nano graphene. It was determined that these fillers reduced flammability and improved flame retardancy, making them suitable for use in building materials. Tests were performed to analyze the burning rate, mass loss, and length loss of the composites, revealing that increasing the nanographene content up to 3% prevented flame propagation and resulted in a burning rate of 0. So pretty much to put out fires, apparently, is one of the uses of graphene, and this all goes back once again to the whole problem reaction solution idea, where you have a problem where the problem is manufactured or just kind of happens, doesn't matter, but you have a reaction to it, and then you have the artificial solution, in this case to fire, it is graphene. So, and those wildfires are literally used as an excuse to develop different nanotechnologies or renewable energy, as they would put it, or green energy or green products, etc., reaching the net zero BS. So, and then, it talks about significant in the energy sector with supercapacitors, dye-sensitized solar cells, supercapacitors, recycled plastics. I know graphene is also used in solar panels. Talks about smart wearable technology, and then it goes even into the medical sector and talks about its high electrical and thermal conductivity in combating this particular thing. Once again, I can't say certain things because of wanting to keep this video up, and also fact of the matter too is problem reaction solution. That's the artificial problem right there. And then you have a reaction fear and the artificial solution of using graphene to combat it through smart drug nanocarriers, graphene quantum dots, and so on and so forth. So, and then it goes into the food industry as well, taking advantage of graphene-based materials for a variety of purposes, including, it says, aiding in plant growth, removing and detecting contaminants, and detecting patulin and quinolone. Not sure what those two things are, my apologies. But the whole point is, it's like a sensor. It could be used almost like a sensor to monitor, or actually, I guess, stimulate the plant growth too. Smart drug or gene delivery, strain sensors, cryptography, electric vehicles, medicine and dentistry, and so on and so forth. So, see, the production or the yeah, I think I've about covered this one right here. So all in all, and then it says biomass composed of a high concentration of carbon and being a renewable resource has been identified as a new potential source from which graphene and GLC materials can be derived. So the amount of biomass waste produced around the world each year is estimated around 10 billion metric tons, and this number is anticipated to grow. And the advantages of biomass resources at their low cost and wide accessibility, which can potentially decrease the cost of graphene and other carbon-derived compounds. So far, several biomass materials have been effectively transformed into graphene and carbon-derived compounds, including wheat straw, sawdust, gumwood, bamboo, peanut shell, rice husks, sugarcane, orange peels, ginger, cotton, etc. And biomass-derived graphene is frequently made up of aligned nanographene domains, which differ from the ideal 2D stacked graphene sheets and result in a variety of shapes. So I guess for different kinds of functions, I guess. So, and then they talk about biofuel and that kind of a thing here. So, Now to move to the circular economy, talk about ISO Technical Committee 323, which the Technical Committee 268 that I was looking at that Patricia McCarney is a part of, called Sustainable Cities and Communities, can access the circular economy documents. So what I'm saying is that the nanomaterials and stuff created through the circular economy or through biomass or whatever is used in smart infrastructure. So it would make sense that that they could access each other's documents. And of course, the circular economy, just like the Sustainable Cities and Communities Technical Committee, also led by France, but you have a different committee manager. Now, I'll say that the other committee manager, in particular in France, this Svetlana, I was not able to really find a whole lot about her on the internet, but Melissa de Medeiros, I managed to find her LinkedIn. So I think I kind of explained what the circular economy is already, but people could have this linked right here so that they could look at this in more depth, because the circular economy is literally the creation of these different green technologies, using their stupid language. So this is the technocrat working with the French or the France Standards Organization that is running the Circular Economy Technical Committee 323. Standardization is little known to the general public, and yet it governs our daily lives. With the AFNOR group, which is the France Standards Organization, I lead groups of experts as part of development of voluntary standards and reference documents at French, European, and international level in the digital sector. And so talks about her work since October 2017, working at AFNOR here, and management of development of French, European, and international standards, French influence strategy and defense national positions in European and international bodies. And some of the themes have to do with industry of the future, so basically creating smart cities, right? The Internet of Things, right? Seeing how these different devices and aspects connect to each other, like LED lights, for instance, and how they're in most cities. I would imagine, I can't speak for the entirety of the world, but speaking about Canada at the very least, probably US as well. LED lights, they turn on and off, at a certain time on a timer connected to the Internet of Things, right? So, and then of course, you also have, because of the nanomaterials that we have ingested or been exposed to in some way, then you have the Internet of Bodies, right? Which is how they do this whole idea of personalized medicine and using quantum digital twins for that. And so, yeah, these people want the Internet of Everything, so to speak. So, and then of course working in railway standardization bureau. So I guess I don't know if that's really public transit in France or what, but and then this is her education there. So it's interesting to note that while looking at this at a localized level in Canada, you come across France, of course. So now just a little bit of carbon nanotubes. Alright, so this article here, biological effects of carbon nanotubes generated in forest wildfire ecosystems rich in resinous trees on native plants. Carbon nanotubes have a broad range of applications and are generally considered human-engineered nanomaterials. However, carbon nanostructures have been found in ice cores and oil wells, suggesting that nature may provide appropriate conditions for carbon nanotube synthesis During forest wildfires, materials such as turpentine and conifer tissues containing iron under high temperatures may create chemical conditions favorable for the generation of carbon nanotubes, similar to those in synthetic methods. And then it says it shows evidence of naturally occurring multi-walled carbon nanotubes produced from Pinus eucarpa and Pinus pseudostrobus following a forest wildfire. So, yeah, carbon nanotubes and graphene and quantum dots we've got so far. And I'll explore quantum dots further in another video too. But I just want to talk about, because I was talking about the city of Mississauga with the Internet of Things, in this particular case, I mean, using this company Dryad, I think they're based in Germany, not 100%, but they talk about the Internet of Things in forestry, and these kinds of things that are said here can really apply anywhere in the world. So, the Internet of Things is a rapidly growing field with applications in a wide range of industries. Early adopters are drawn to its potential for making homes more convenient and efficient, but recent developments have shown that Internet of Things can also be used to improve healthcare, transportation, and manufacturing. It's thought of as a network of physical objects or things that are embedded with sensors, software, and network connectivity to collect and exchange data. Like I said, this also applies to biological life too, so it's the Internet of Bodies as well. Data collected from Internet of Things devices can be used to improve efficiency, productivity, and decision making in a variety of industries. Advancements in sensor technology, cloud computing, wireless connectivity, and AI have led to a rapid growth in the use of Internet of Things, which are now being used in different things from healthcare, manufacturing, fleet management, whatever. And gives an example of the healthcare industry being able to monitor patients remotely, track medical equipment, and improve patient care, and goes on to talk about wearable devices used to collect data on patients' vital signs, which are sent to the doctor for monitoring, and apparently can help doctors identify potential problems early on and intervene before they become too serious. So there we have the convergence in the medical industry once again. Through wearables, and then going on now to talk about forestry here a little bit. So the Internet of Things, it talks about the integration of Internet of Things forestry has revolutionized traditional practices, making forest management more efficient and less labor intensive. By employing sensors and Internet of Things devices, foresters can now monitor vast areas with precision, obtaining real-time data on tree health, soil moisture, and environmental conditions. This shift toward digital forestry facilitates proactive decision-making and enhances the sustainability of forest management practices, right? Plays a crucial role in the conservation of forests, right, if you say so. I'd say more like perverting nature is what it's really doing. And they're apparently monitoring wildlife, vegetation, ecological conditions, and stream of data, to preserve biodiversity, right? And biodiversity, there's a technical committee for biodiversity for that term, right? So we're looking at that technical committee in a future video too. And so talks about a paradigm shift in forest health monitoring, and then it says that it basically talks about how great of the idea of the Internet of Things in forests is utilizing this kind of technology to monitor how a forest is doing, so to speak. So, and of course the extreme heat or forest fires can of course create more of these technologies. So as far as I'm concerned, the technocrats really do benefit from these wildfires. So that would probably about cover this in and of itself. So this one over here, okay, so as I was talking about the Internet of Things, and I mentioned the Internet of Bodies, which then, leading toward the Internet of Everything, so to speak. And also, I guess, have the Internet of Trees, it doesn't really matter, all the terms you could think of, Internet of Water, whatever, but it says that the, actually, let me just go to the start first here. So it's called Forest 4.0, digitalization of forest using the Internet of Things. Digitalization of forest, as this phrase itself suggests, the sustainable implementation of cutting-edge technologies into forests for improving the current trends that are being used for forest environmental monitoring, data acquisition, and analysis in the field of research and development. Technologies can be used effectively for achieving these objectives, such as the Internet of Things, wireless sensor network, Internet of Trees, deep learning, etc. The study goes on to talk about exploring and assimilating the possibilities of technological interventions in forests to apparently improve their ecosystems, and talks about sensing, monitoring, and methods for analysis to be used in applications like forest fire incidents. So not only keeping track of forest fires, but like I also mentioned, using the forest fires to really just create more of this technology in and of itself. So problem, reaction, solution, right? So and yeah, so it goes on just to talk about, different sensor systems and stuff like that. The Internet of Trees terminology implies the trees are embedding with, I'm just going to read it because it's pretty small to see there. It says that terminology, the Internet of Trees, implies that the trees are embedding with Internet-based modules for sensing, communicating, and monitoring the environmental parameters in the forest via Internet connectivity, monitoring the environmental parameter, fire accident detection, illegal logging in real time with the assistance of Internet-based modules is called as Internet of Trees. Generally, we heard the Internet of Things terminology, where things are monitored, communicated, and tracked with the assistance of IP. Previous studies mainly focused on the detection and monitoring of the fire in the forest. Few studies focused on the monitoring of environmental parameters like temperature, wind speed, carbon dioxide, etc., etc. So, yeah, pretty much under the guise of protecting the environment. Is protecting the environment and monitoring environmental activity is pretty much the excuse for creating this technology, I guess. So, talks about here that forest innovation has long been tied to nanotechnology, and they talk about nanotechnology being used for better wood treatments like UV protection, moisture and decay resistance, as well as pesticides in the form of nanoemulsions in tiny droplets of 20 to 200 nanometers, and can be deposited more uniformly on plant trees. So nanotechnology actually used in pesticides, pretty much. And then we conducted paper, as well as quality paper. And in the environment, it talks about nanofiltration, and then it mentions reducing emissions, mitigating climate change, even though climate change in and of itself is biodigital convergence, which is what these people are doing. So, whatever. I guess that's what you get when you look at a government website, right? So, this is from the document Exploring Biodigital Convergence, What Happens When Biology and Digital Technology Merge, from Policy Horizons, which, like I said, is led by Crystal Vander Elst, who is connected internationally to, for one thing, she was head of strategic foresight in the World Economic Forum. She's a member of the IEC, and as well is connected to the, I can't remember the name of the group offhand. If I remember, I'll just jump in and say, but a certain international group that is connected with the UN and IMF and stuff like that. So, in particular here, this is sort of like an imaginary scenario that's put into this, you have a possible narrative depicting some innovations in a future biodigital world. And so people can go on to read the whole scenario that they want, but, yeah, some of it is, sounds, very strange or hokey or like a science fiction novel or movie, but in reality, to quote Mark Twain, the truth is stranger than fiction because with fiction you're obliged to stick to possibilities. So, I'm just going to read this part of this imaginary scenario here, but everything looks alright, so I check my brain's digital interface to read the dream data that was recorded and processed in real time last night. My therapy app analyzes the emotional responses I expressed while I slept. It suggests I take time to be in nature this week to reflect on my recurring trapped in a box dream and enhance helpful subconscious neural activity. My AI recommends a forest day. I think, okay, and my AI and neural implant do the rest. So, pretty much, in a nutshell, you want us to be in a digital forest and call that fresh air, is what that very much sounds like. Whether it's purely in a digital realm with, meta glasses or whatever, or even, augmented reality or mixed reality where they try to blend the physical and virtual together, still hold perversion in and of itself. And I will say that I haven't quite closely followed the regulations and things happening in Nova Scotia, but all in all, I'll just say that I really think that people do have to stand up and start asking some questions out there, especially in regards to the biomass type of stuff and green energy and production of these nanomaterials, and take this right down to the technical committee level, because ultimately, like, I enjoy nature like anybody else, and I don't want to be in a world where you have to, go have a forest day through AI or something like that. Like, anyway, it's just a future I obviously don't want, and I don't think anybody wants that. So, we do have to stand up and form ethics committees and, basically tell, the local municipality or your local town, that you don't want this agenda. And you have to be able to explain it too in its fullest extent, right down to the nanomaterials and policies and stuff like that, because ultimately, like, with a lot of social engineering and stuff, like the policy horizons here, they have a different article and video. It's called The Future of Sense Making, Creating Senses. Basically another way of saying social engineering. So a lot of time people, talk about things like chemtrails, for lack of better words. I don't like using that term because you just sound like a nut bar off the bat, and that's sort of the point that I'm making, because all in all, like, it's the term here, like, so geoengineering in and of itself doesn't just refer to, weather manipulation and stuff like that. They're also talking about exactly the whole circular economy type of thing, with the creation of carbon nanotubes or graphene or, that or quantum dots and that kind of a thing. So, ultimately, too, geoengineering doesn't just have to do with weather in and of itself, but, for the BS, people like to use the term chemtrails, right? It's stratospheric aerosol injection. And so this is a thing, and this is the proper and correct terminology to use, and it's important that we do, because nobody can sit there and call you crazy, or they can try, but it's all right there, you know what I mean? So, and they talk about, and of course, the stratospheric aerosol injection is marketed to be something good, and talk about how it could mitigate harmful effects of global warming, right? You know, BS, right, to throw at you. An imaginary problem to create an artificial solution, right? The stratospheric aerosol injection. And so, yeah, people can totally dive into that in and of itself, you know. But this is again only one component of the geoengineering experiments, let alone the whole convergence experiment in and of itself. So, stratospheric aerosol injection, and then the other thing that I wanted to talk about very briefly is, I can't even pronounce it, unfortunately, glyphosate or whatever it's called. I hear a lot of people talking about this thing, but they don't really talk about how it relates to the convergence experiment. So, in this particular Australian article here, they talk about, this turn a common weed killer into a nano herbicide that boosts plant hydration. And so, infusing the herbicide glyphosate with biodegradable nanocellulose, people from this AIBN, I guess, the Australian Institute for Bioengineering and Nanotechnology, and this is out of the University of Queensland, Australia. They basically use glyphosate, sorry, I just have a hard time pronouncing that, with biodegradable nanocellulose, and these are the two scientists here that are the two researchers that are involved in this, and apparently, this design is to deal with invasive weeds and improve crop rehydration, right? So problem, reaction, solution, right? And so in a nutshell here, they're talking about using glyphosate in a positive way, so to speak, and to kind of break this down a little further, pretty much like wildfires, wildland urban interface fire ashes as a major source of incidental nanomaterials. So it goes on to mention here, it says in recent years, just get to it, if I got rid of the, okay, yeah, I think I actually got rid of the tab, that's okay, no problem. So, no I didn't, here it is, we are in luck, ta-da. So, it mentions that in recent years, my goodness, this is slow. It says in recent years, nanoscience and sorry for the slowness, why I haven't made a video in so long. In recent years, nanoscience and nanotechnology have positioned themselves as two concepts of great relevance in the world. Nanotechnology has gained great strength in the scientific world. The ability to handle the matter on a nanometric scale has opened the possibility of obtaining nanomaterials in the form of metals, ceramics, polymeric materials, or composite materials with increasingly specific properties capable of supplying a large number of technological and industrial needs. Within a large number of applications of nanomaterials, the removal of contaminants in an area is in is an area in which they are currently being widely used, taking advantage of their properties and versatility. In this sense, different investigations have demonstrated their usefulness in the adsorption of glyphosate from water sources. The most commonly used nanomaterials for this purpose include namely nanomaterials of metal oxides, nanoparticles of metals. Ag is silver, Zn is zinc, and Fe is iron, as well as carbon nanotubes. So I just want to say, very much like how glyphosate or whatever is brought up as a problem in the same way that a lot of people talk about fluoride, right? I mean, I'm talking about two different things, but the comparison I'm trying to make here is the fact that when talking about these two problems, the artificial solution does revolve around nanotechnology, and in the case here, so it talks about silver, zinc, and iron. So silver silica nanomaterials. So when I say silica, I'm talking about silicon dioxide. So silicon dioxide and silver pretty much is used as a way to deal with and mitigate the fluoride apparently in water. But the thing is you then ingest the silver silica nanomaterials anyway, or bathe in it, right? As we're talking about water in that case. But you know, when it comes down to glyphosate, it talks about adsorption, not absorption. So when you absorb something, you kind of put something inside the way a sponge absorbs water. But adsorption is just adding a layer to something, kind of like putting a dye on a fiber, like when people make clothes, right? So when you're talking about the adsorption here in particular of glyphosate from water sources, all you're doing is adding a layer on top of something. You're not really getting rid of glyphosate or glyphosate or whatever the hell it's called. So I only included this little bit here just because I hear a lot of people talking about this, you know, big G or whatever. So all in all, I'll just leave it at this: is that circular economy seems to be the manner in which materials are created, and the wildfires are pretty much a giant circular economy project. And I didn't really go over the restrictions or things going on in Nova Scotia. I haven't really been following that. So I mean, people can look into that themselves, and stuff like that, information like that might even change daily. I don't know, but all in all, like like pretty much it's like climate change lockdown. It's no different than the scamdemic, so to speak, right? So people have to stand up because I don't think that people want to be in a virtual forest, right? They probably want to actually enjoy real nature. So, yeah, we need to form ethics committees to deal with this kind of a thing, and also people should be protecting their local water sources to the best of their ability as well. So, thanks everybody for watching, and they can find me on Facebook at Matt Unseated if they have questions or even ask me something publicly on YouTube here. Thanks very much.